The above ground solution. However, we've worked out all the kinks and are proud to present the easiest, price competitive and time saving solution. I see that we have got a lot more numbers since yesterday. So, and I also see we've got a few repeat offenders. So you probably had enough time to think up those tricky. So please don't hesitate to type them in the message bar at the bottom of the screen. We'll try and answer them as we go along. I'm also proud to say Stormwater Systems has now exited the 90s. We're now in the noughties. So please feel free to check out our Facebook page and website. And without further ado, let me pass you over to Andrew. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, Chris. Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm the founder of Stormwater Systems, or co-founder, with my son Elliot. We've been in Auckland now, running here in New Zealand just over 3 years. And we were the people that brought you the Aquacomb innovative and hidden stormwater system. And in so doing, talking to a lot of building companies and engineers and architects who often bemoaned the fact that above ground solutions were pretty ugly, and that's proven with the number of developers that have required that above ground tanks be fenced because they're so blooming ugly, and of course they take up a lot of space. So we decided to put our thinking caps on, and one of the tenements of our business is innovation. We've over the last 18 months or so developed the FenceTank, which we hope will be a bit of a game changer in the above ground tank market in New Zealand and now Australia as well. People that have helped us with this product in the development are the good team at Universal Homes, as well as Steve and Paul from PG Drainage, who are one of our installation partners, and Ben and Ewan at Dreambox in Wellington, who are responsible for the amazing 3D images that you'll see in this presentation. So the mold is currently being made in overseas right now, and we will be proudly making the product in New Zealand from July. So that's when the product's going to be available. Now, as Chris said, there is the menu bar at the bottom. You'll see there the thing about questions. We had about 40 odd questions yesterday, which was pretty impressive. And we've updated the presentation to include a lot of the info that was asked yesterday as well. So, but by all means, pop your questions in there as we go along, and we'll do our very best to answer them before the end of the session. So, the FenceTank. The reason that we're using lots of tanks, or having to do lots of tanks, is because of the increased development. So as those of you in Auckland especially will understand, we're turning green fields, which are nice and permeable, into concrete and steel and tiled roofs, which of course is not permeable. It means there's a much greater flow of rainwater off those hard surfaces. For those of you engineers out there, this is obviously nothing you don't know about. What has happened, of course, is that we're needing to make as much as we can eliminate the bad effect. So that's where stormwater engineers come in, and what we have to do is basically attenuate the flow. So we need to return the runoff to what it was pre-development. So that's where the civil engineers, of course, will calculate the stormwater requirement and what sort of level of tank or size of tank or level of storage is required. We can also do that for those of you that are just looking for a quick calculation. We have access and are working with a number of civil engineering companies now to be able to provide that at competitive prices for those of you building companies out there. Now, I apologise in advance to those of you outside of Auckland. This is a uniquely Auckland thing, another one. You'll see here on the left, the blue, lots of blue. These are what are known as the SMAF areas, the catchy name of Stormwater Management Area Flow. And these areas correspond with actually quite a lot of new development areas as well. So in the south of Auckland here, around Pukekohe, Drury, Karaka, that's the area where the government is spending $2 billion on new infrastructure. And there's tens of thousands of houses coming in here. And then again, out west, most of the west development area is the same. And then again, up north around Milldale, and as you can see, Wainui there, the left side of the motorway heading north. All of these areas are going to require stormwater attenuation. So again, we can do a SMAF calculation for you if required. But in these areas, you've got the extra requirement of having both reuse as well as detention. And in Council's wisdom, they created two flow calculations, flow 1 and flow 2, quite a small difference between the two of them. But bottom line is that at least 5 millimeters of the volume that comes off the site has to be used on site. So whether that is done with a rain garden and watering the property, in most cases there isn't enough grass. So in many cases the water is reused in the property itself, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This site over here, if you wanted to note it down, has a very detailed, right down to virtually titled lot, as to whether a property is in a SMAF zone or not, and that's a good quick access or quick calculation. The unfortunate thing, of course, is that with our infrastructure here in Auckland, a lot of it being old or even combined waste and stormwater pipes, and capacity maybe not being as good as we would like, there's a lot of capacity issues as well. So even if a site isn't within a SMAF area, you may find it still requires stormwater management or on-site detention of one sort or another. So up until now, the options have been highly attractive. A lot of these were photos taken out Hobsonville and Scott Point, where, as you can see there, big lumps of concrete and all very attractive issues. And if they're not fenced, you also then have the cost of a fence as well. So with our fence tank, what you won't get is a tank that sticks above your fence and then the pipework and the like above that. You won't get the waste space, or as much waste space that takes at the back of the property. You got these seismic restraints, which have a habit of cutting little fingers and collecting cobwebs and the like. You won't have to pay for a reinforced concrete pad as well, and you won't have to then pay for the cost of a fence to hide your tank. What you will get, though, is the fence tank. Ta-da! So, introducing the fence tank. As you can see here, fairly slim profile and made in New Zealand. Now, the tank itself, 1800 long by 1800 high, coincidentally the same height as your standard close board fence. Total depth of the tank's 410, but when it's put in line with the fence, it actually only protrudes 265-ish, depending on the thickness of your rails attached to the posts and then also the thickness of the palings. So anywhere between sort of 250 and 275 proud of the fence. What that means, of course, is that you can quite easily run it down these narrow 1 metre setbacks on the smaller sites and still have room to get past it. The other thing to note here, of course, is the 20-year warranty. The joys of working from home is you get the doorbells with the deliveries in the background as well. The product doesn't have to just be used as a fence, though, although that was the original idea, and you'll see plenty of examples of that coming up. Just a note, these are all 3D images. None of these are photographs. The product is still in the process of being manufactured. So Dreambox have done an amazing job. A group of young guys in Wellington who are very, very talented. So here you see a 1,000-litre tank. Obviously, all of each unit is 1,000 litres. And this one you see connected to one of our pumps, the plug-and-play pump, and connected up under the eaves of a house. So you'll note there the guttering or the downpipe coming straight into the top of the tank with a gutter guard. We always recommend putting a leaf diverter on every tank inlet. And this is the overflow pipe here, and the pump connected in at the bottom of the tank there. The other thing to note here is the tank doesn't have to be placed on concrete, so that also helps with lessening your impervious surface coverage. Here's another example of it used on site, not actually in the fence line, but as a fence within the property. So here it is partitioning off the back of a carport, for example, and with the clothesline attached to the posts at the rear. Again, note the pervious surface that it can be placed on. Now, the real benefit here is for sites like Hobsonville Point. This is where we thought of originally. 3 in a row joined together seamlessly like this, 3,000 litres. So we don't have different sized tanks as such. We don't have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, whatever. You just join as many together as you need to achieve the volume that is required. So
Modular.
Modular, scalable, flexible, yeah. So here we go, 3 in a row at the back of this property. Again, note the fact that they don't have to be on a concrete pad. And even able to be stepped down a slope on sloping land. So obviously you don't run them with the contour because all the water ends up at one end and probably ends up in your tank sliding down the slope, but you can step them. And so as long as they're on good ground, definition of good ground, and level, you can join them together down a slope. So these ones we've shown with different levels of difference or height difference here, and down obviously a sloping property on top of the retaining walls. And this here, very detailed and clever drawing by the boys at Dreambox, shows not only the cutaway, but how you would connect them on a slope like this. Incredible imagery these boys have done. Anyway, it's not an ad for them. Now, this is where it really gets clever and exciting. And this is where we're talking with Universal right at the very beginning, was the ability, if you're working with developers or looking at the cutting up of land, if you offset every second boundary with a dog leg, like this in the middle here, in effect what you can do is run the tanks in a straight line and solve your easement issues or the like by having a dog leg and running the tanks in a straight line. That way, in effect, you only lose a couple of 100 mil on each side of usable space. So where you've got narrow sites, you've got the ability to make the most of that land space. We did some rough calculations with the boys at unis, and if we had worked with them from the outset and had looked at it, they reckoned that they may have been able to achieve up to 10 extra sites by using this methodology. Granted, there were, I think the plans is 2,000 sites in that particular development over the course of a number of years, but 10 or 11 extra sites it was is definitely a, that's money in your back pocket. Now, colouring, talking to a number of architects to get some feedback on what the most popular colours were, is where we've landed with tank white, birch grey, slate grey and black. So basically white, light, dark grey and black. We do recommend that the black is probably not, you don't do a full fence of that one, especially if you're looking for potable water, because you'd be having hot water coming out on a regular basis. But as you can see here, working with Matrix, we have quite a wide range of tank colours available. And while we're carrying these 4 in stock, we can make 2 order. So if you're planning from the outset as part of a development, we can, as long as we have a minimum of 20 in the order, can make to any of these tank colours for the same price as what we'll tell you later. And then if you're wanting to get totally creative, in fact, we were talking to JazzMax about a school job, and they were looking at potentially multiple coloured tanks. So if you wanted to get carried away for a childcare centre or the like, then we could do runs of different coloured tanks. These, of course, do cost more because the polymers cost more for these other colours. Now, just to clarify, it is all tank grade plastic. The same plastic as is used by all tank manufacturers in New Zealand. There is a standard for it, NZS 4766, and then within that there are all of these other methodologies and values that have to be met. So obviously we are creating a product that meets all of those standards. Features and benefits obviously is that these products are designed with a UV 15,000 hour minimum. 4766 only requires 8,000 hours. So already we're nearly twice the standard at that point. And as you noted earlier, you would have seen it comes with a 20-year guarantee anyway. Now, bit more detail around how the how and why the fence tank is so efficient. As you can see here, it is mounted against posts, so it sits on the ground but mounted against 100 by 100 posts. If it's SG 8 timber, they'd need to be 1 by 125s if they're SG 6. But you'll note here the rebate in the tank. So that is what the easy thing is. It rebates 75 mil over the post, and then these 4 holes here with 180 mil coach screws through the tank and into the post. So nice and simple to do. And there we have obviously the inlet pipe at one end, and then the overflow and outlet with detention, or the ability to have a detention orifice in the bottom here. The brackets hold all the pipework in and also act as an extra strengthening around the middle of the tank. Now this next animation should work. Not sure how far it comes in, but basically the posts are 900 apart. Here we go. Whoops, yeah, we lose part of it. So the posts are 900 apart, and the holes 400 round and 600 deep. That shows how that quite simple to install. Should be able to be installed by any handyman or woman. And then if we're joining multiples together, we do similar sort of thing with the first one, and then we have a joining kit, which are pre-cut lengths of pipe with seals, and each tank is then just slotted together, and a joining plate and alignment bracket on the top to hold them in one place. More detail around that, as you can see here, this is how it comes through here. Now, Chris, you had some wording for describing how this was done.
Yeah, so using a torque wrench will make sure that you don't over tighten it and potentially split the tank, which would be very difficult to do anyway, but using the right tools, obviously.
Yep, that's good there. And obviously a washer here at the end of the bolt and the rebate. And then once the bolts are in, we have these little end caps that cover the 4 holes to keep it nice and sealed and keep spiders and the like out. You'll note here, thickness a minimum of 6 mil in the plastic. Obviously with these ribs and the like, we're going to be looking at quite a lot thicker, and rotor molding being the process it is, means that often plastic builds up in the corners for extra strength anyway. Already have a producer statement ready to go for installation and mounting and the like. And then we have had the FEA testing done, which shows maximum 6 mil flex in the tank when full and in heat. Just to note the color, extra color at the bottom there, this is obviously the base of the tank, so that sits on the ground, so there's no deflection. Now, we talked about detention. Obviously, these can be used for either detention or retention. What we've done here is with the detention orifice is hidden it away in the base 100 mil pipe. So this is with a reducer bush. Obviously, there's multiple types of reducer bushes on the market, but you can get 100 to 80 to 65, 40, 32, and then the appropriate sized end cap. If you need a dimension different from the standard items available, then we'd just recommend drilling out the end cap before it's glued onto the end of the reducer bush, which is obviously glued into the pipe on the end here. And if in future you need to access it to inspect it or to keep it clean, then obviously just through the inspection cap on the outside here. So nice and simple. If you need to, I think there's a slide later on about maintenance, but just to mention briefly, you can get a camera in through the hole easily enough here. And of course, there's also a breather hole in the top of the tank that you can access for having to suck it out in 20 years' time if you want to or need to. Apparently, we're supposed to inspect our tanks every year. It'd be interesting to know how many people actually do. Now, if you need multiple orifices, so we had a couple of engineers ask about multiple orifices, Orifi, then we've developed a system using a Boss junction. So at the appropriate height for the volume required, insert a Boss junction. We've based it on taking a maximum of 50 mil. We imagine most orifices or Orifi that need to be as secondary are usually smaller than that. So you either drill the appropriate sized hole in the pipe, or if you're wanting to keep it with the ability to come out, is we use an end cap on the end of it with the right size hole drilled in it. and just in more detail there exactly what it is. The thing to note here is where the tank already has indications on the side to try and make it easier for people. So here we've already noted 1/3, 1/2 and 3/4. We've also noted no drill zones, which are where the you would have seen on that cutaway version where the pipes join the tank together. So steer clear of those. But in most cases that'll solve the problem. We also have a matrix available which gives you the exact distance up the tank that each of the volumes correspond to. Now, reuse was the next question. Now, this is a chart that we just came across this morning. In fact, I think Auckland Watercare only published it today. Our water is at the lowest it's been for 25 years in Auckland right now. It doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon. So we're looking down the barrel of the worst drought in 25 years right now. If ever there was a time that every single house needed to have water storage, then this is it. Or should have had some time ago, because obviously it'd be empty by now. What we have is the ability to use these tanks for detention or reuse. So here's the setup with a combined. So obviously the inlet, the overflow, this particular orifice here is your obviously your detention orifice, and then that means the remainder of the volume is able to be used for reuse, and we use the easy tap connection for being able to take your pump feed out at any height up the tank. So with detention, you've got a couple of different ways of doing it. You can either apportion it across the range of tanks. Now, this could be 2 tanks, this could be 102 tanks, but we would recommend the better way to do it is to fill your retention tanks first. Once they're full, overflow into your detention tanks and run that as a system with the orifice at the end. If you're doing a retention system or reuse system, then Stormwater Systems has developed their own plug-and-play pump, or our own plug-and-play pump. What we found with doing the Aquacomb solutions was that there were an awful lot of, shall we just call them bespoke pump systems set up around the place with various forms and quality of pipework and connections and exposed electronics and the like. There was a photo in that very first collection of pumps which looked more like R2-D2 than it did a sensible pump setup. And so all of this is enclosed in its own box. And for those of you in Auckland, we have the combined, or something that's extra and unique to Auckland, of course, is the testable dual check valve with gate valves to isolate it so it can be checked and supposedly tested once a year and reports supplied to Auckland Council. Yeah, right. It does already have a backflow preventer in it as well. And the unit without all of this paraphernalia is supplied to everywhere else in the country. Just Aucklanders pay $300 and something more for this.
As a requirement.
As a requirement, yeah. We also have a submersible pump setup coming. We were hoping to have that for this webinar, but unfortunately not yet. But obviously, if you're interested in looking at specifying the tank, then we'll engage with you about the options for pumps to go with it if necessary. Now, pricing. The tank itself, $879 for 1,000 litres. Now, there is another slimline tank on the market. There's probably several. There's a number of tanks that call themselves slim. I'm not sure that 800 and something millimeters is slim, but anyway, definitely not my waist measurement at that level, that's for sure. But the most direct comparison, 1,000 litres sells for around about $1,200 plus GST. And then what we've done is tried to make it as efficient as possible for installation and from a cost perspective. So we work with Altus Workshops, which is the disabled workshop, and in South Auckland, and like to give them as much work as we can. So what we've done is we're getting all the pipes pre-cut to the correct lengths, we're putting together the packs, and then they'll bag them up and have them ready to go with each unit sold. And this way, of course, we can also add some value by having lots of pieces at a lower price. So if you go to your local wholesaler or or retailer, the parts alone for these packs are quite a lot more than the combo pack that we are selling these for, to make it simpler and more and easy. And then you know exactly what bits you got for the tank each time. The joining kit, of course, 4 seals. Those rubber seals cost a fortune, don't they? Again, a lot cheaper if you buy it direct from us.
Now, if I may, I've just been informed that it's a 2-month lead time for concrete. So
I beg your pardon?
2-month lead time.
Wow.
So not needing concrete underneath these, I think we've got a huge advantage.
Assuming that it's July that they need them. They will be available from July.
Of course.
Yeah. So does now there was a question yesterday about council. Has council signed these off? My understanding is council doesn't need to sign them off because it's a water tank like every other water tank on the market. We provide the PS1, which is what is required, and that is all that's required. So they can be specified, included on building consent drawings and submitted to council. We've actually already had a number of jobs with the product specified and passed through, waiting for BC, and just waiting for the tanks, obviously, for the end of the project. So don't see any issues there. Auckland specific, again, we have our wonderful district plan, and under the district plan, a water tank is considered a building. So for most new developments, you do a resource consent anyway, so you would include this as part of that resource consent. And some wag said, oh, well, if you're building on the boundary, it's got to be fire rated. Okay, so your wooden fence isn't fire rated. What's the story with that? And of course, this is filled with water. So yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's interesting. We did have a discussion with Christchurch Council, and South Island seems to be very pragmatic, boys down there. They just looked at me and laughed and said, you're kidding, aren't you? Yes, of course they're fine. So perfectly all right for Christchurch, should be perfectly all right for Auckland. Plenty of locations to go if you have any trouble, but if you do have trouble, come back to us. I'm sure there won't be any. Here we go. Here's a question. End cap panel to hide the pipework. Love it. Okay, so we thought we were being extremely clever by hiding the pipework as it is inside the tank itself. So every other tank on the market, you'd have the pipes coming up the outside of it, coming over the top of it or whatever. The only reason you're seeing these pipes is because we're specifically showing that hidden pipework. We have talked about an end cap, and given the amount of interest, we've decided that we will investigate to see if there is the possibility of making something to go with it. That would probably only cover the top part of it though, because this bottom cap still has to be accessible and is actually slightly proud of the tank anyway. But
in the meantime,
worth having a look at. You can
it wouldn't be hard to make a fence paling over the top of that if you wanted to hide it.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, but yes, definitely worth something to consider further. Thank you for the question, Hilton. Any other questions from anyone? Is there any aspects that we haven't thought of? We've tried to think of everything, talking to as many people as we can, but it's only when you actually go live with this, because this is only the second time the market as a whole has seen the product. So,
yes, I've had an email from Peter. Wanted to know, are they detachable?
Detachable.
I don't know what he means by that.
So they join together to make a volume of greater than 1,000 litres. So you 2 for 2,000, 3 for 3,000, etc. Can you then pull them apart? I suppose maybe. Well, absolutely, because they're only bolted into the fence post. So if you're wanting to move them or remove them, then there's no reason why you can't. I mean, the pipes are a pressure fitting. So the same way as they're assembled, they could be disassembled. I'm not sure if that answers the question or not. But okay, so that's pretty much, as they say on 7 days, that's my picture. We would welcome the opportunity to discuss with anyone looking to specify them. The obvious thing with anything like this is if we don't know they've been specified, then we don't know how many to make. And the last thing we want to do is have people having to wait for the product. So we do have the PS1 available, which does have to be included with the building consent. So if you are wanting the PS1 to specify the product to go with building consent, please contact us and we can send that through to you. So if there are no more questions, and there are no more questions, what about on the chat function? No, nothing there either. Okay, well, far better behaved mob this morning, Chris.
Oh, we must have
Yesterday's
answered all the questions.
Yeah. Okay, well, in that case, folks, thank you very much. Thank you for watching. And please feel free to reach out to chris@stormwatersystems.co.nz or give us a call on the 0800 11 08 08.
Thanks. We'd love to hear from you.
Lovely. Thanks very much.
Take care. Ciao.
Well done, buddy.
I like